for tuning in to the Prolific One podcast. Information about each presenter and their organization can be viewed on the prolificone.com insight page. This session will begin now.
Thank you for listening to the third episode of the Prolific One podcast. This is Kyle Osolin, Head of Music Partnerships at Prolific One, and joining me today will be Vaughn. Ian is a venue owner, promoter, and artist manager, as he owns multiple restaurants and venues across the Midwest and Southeast, including Lava Cantina, North Dallas's premier music venue. His parent company, Rockin' Concepts, books and promotes over 1,000 shows per year throughout the United States. In addition, Rockin' Concepts manages artists across country and rock music genres. Ian, I appreciate you taking the time and hope all has been well.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time as well. Talk about how venues have reacted and all the effects on our industry.
So you having your hands in so many areas, you and I could talk for quite a while on today's podcast. Maybe we'll have to do a few of these, but given the current climate in the industry today, I really want to focus on your venue, Lava Cantina. As we know, in March of this year, COVID-19 brought the entire live industry to a halt. No matter the size, venues, stadiums, clubs, arenas, bars, everybody was impacted. With you being a venue owner, in-house promoter, with shows on the books through the end of the year, what did you guys focus on first?
Well, first and foremost, I got to say, with our staff itself, we have a staff of 150 people. Making the right decisions for their health, their employment, being able to take care of their families and such was priority one out of the gate. We took a lot of additional measures to just make sure that they were set up for success. They had all the tools and resources that they needed in order to set themselves up and their families up for success with unemployment and a variety of other things. So we held all group meetings, we held virtual calls, we did step-by-step instruction guides for them to navigate those crazy waters. And I'm proud to say every single one of them got the additional assistance that they needed and never missed a paycheck throughout the entire time period. So once we knew that they were very well taken care of and that they would all be back in with us, of course, we had to attack our music schedule. So reaching out to each and every one of our agents that we work with on a regular basis, not only for Lava Cantina, but for a lot of our other initiatives that we have going on around the country, we found that to be a very difficult and trying time initially because nobody really knew what to make of anything just yet or how long this would last or anything along those lines. So as we were trying to be proactive, it was initially received as aggressive and with a lot of pushback. And it didn't take long, just maybe a week or so into it, where it became just like the norm of everybody was just working to reschedule and not only reschedule the current week and upcoming week, but the next couple of months to a time later on in the year. You start to go down that path, and then you start to look at your revenue streams and how you're going to survive. You got big bills coming out, and you sit and you wait on what the government's going to do and what other support and aid and everything that's going to be there to get through those times, because the next step in that process is, okay, with all these dates moving, we have to do the right thing for our guests as well and give them the option to take a refund or wait for the postponed date. Luckily, most guests, I would say 90% of guests, were not looking for refunds. They were just waiting on a date to be rescheduled. So we were really pushing the limits as far as how fast we could get these dates done and back on our books to where we could get that announced and emailed out to the public to where they didn't start requesting a ton of refunds, because we knew cash would be very tight, and to be giving up that sort of revenue would be detrimental to the business to be able to still pay our bills and such while we were closed down. So as a part of doing that, we made public statements very early on asking for people's patience. We let them know that a plan of action was being put in place and was very transparent with our guests about the processes that we were taking. We are also a restaurant, so we made tremendous changes and immediately converted and created a to-go menu and a curbside pickup and delivery menu, even though we had never done anything like that before. And just tried to make a hard pivot very quickly in a matter of 48 to 72 hours. And we were one of the fortunate ones. People responded very well. And I think because we came out of the gate with, you can request a refund if you can't attend the new date. All we ask is that you wait to see what the new date is. People were extremely understanding, and we didn't see a hit on our cash flow. We didn't see a blowback of guests or anything. But I can also say we pacified a lot of our guests, because within a week, we had built an entire streaming program that was prepared to launch. And the main thing for us at that point was getting bands to sign up to do it, and under a new deal, which, we could talk about more later. So there were a lot of initiatives that took place all at the same time that gave the perception and the reception to the community that we really cared, and that we were trying everything in our power to do the right thing. We were communicating effectively, and in return, they gave us a tremendous amount of understanding and leeway.
First off, I want to applaud you for your efforts. To make this successful, we saw everyone in the industry kind of work collaboratively, the artists, the agents, the venues, the promoters, basically the entire ecosystem of touring. For you as an independent venue owner, you really rely on the revenue, as we say, the small wins from each and every show to keep the lights on, pay staff, and ultimately book more shows. It's a continuous cycle. Now, due to the circumstances with no revenue coming in besides the restaurant portion of the business, what was next?
We really turned our sights initially towards what move the government was going to make in support of our industry and really for all industries. We wanted to be on the front edge of that. I stayed in constant contact with my attorneys, with other venue owners, with other business owners. I started a conference call with all the local businesses that I ultimately just kicked off and shared best practices. And then as I found out additional legislation, in my prior lives, I had a lot of ties on Capitol Hill. So we were able to get stuff hot off the presses before it got published to the industry as far as what was coming, to where we could be first in line. And for anybody that was participating and trying to get the EIDL loans or the Paycheck Protection Program loans and or forgiveness programs, that was more about, you needed to be first, and you needed to be at the head of the line. You'd be one of the first ones applying for it and to get all your ducks in a row. So what we were doing was sharing everything as far as what documentation are you putting together? How are you getting everything ready? What historical information do you need to have? We knew which route that we were going to take. And we also were advising bands. I was doing conference calls with 50 to 60 bands at a time, trying to advise them on what they needed to do, since they didn't qualify for the initial unemployment, as 1099 employees didn't qualify. So ultimately, my goal throughout that phase, just to try to help as much as I could, because and whenever I was a corporate executive for a restaurant company before, that was impacted, to a devastating degree by Hurricane Katrina. So I'd been down this disaster path before, and we had a lot of tools and resources that we knew that we could help. So I believe in goodwill in times of crisis, and I believe that our entire team really stepped up to the plate very well and helped as many people as possible, in the hopes that once things started to normalize, that would come back to us to a certain degree. So once it did, and once we got our Paycheck Protection Program, once we saw that a lot of the other people that were as a part of our group were getting approved immediately and very quickly, getting the money that they needed to get themselves back afloat, it's at that point in time where we really took the next phase as far as, all right, we need to get our people back to work immediately because of the rules that were tied to that money in order to have it forgiven. And we put together some very creative plans in order to get them back into the venue again, because as I stated earlier, within a week we were streaming, and we were doing 2 shows a day, and with bands that were just trusting us and taking a chance to an empty room and putting it out there. And initially, we were getting 10 to 20,000 views per stream, and that we've seen that explode over the course of the past 3 to 4 months. And then trying to find a way to monetize that to where it's not just dead money was difficult, but we ultimately found a way through sponsors. So, You have in one facet, we are just working on education of our local community. You have another facet that we have our own business to protect and getting all of our own loans completed and such. You have another one that is trying to stay relevant and keep our artists in contact with our fans, and that was being done through streaming. And then now we have this news task as far as, all right, we have 150 people to reemploy. What are they all going to do in order to meet the regulations? And so that bred a tremendous amount of creativity of numerous initiatives that we can definitely dive into. But that's really the gist of it as far as what happened next.
Touching on the streaming concept, you saw once things started to shake out and no live music for a foreseeable future, you saw a lot of artists from their house and how you were able to shift strategy so quickly, and that a few weeks after closing your doors, you hosted the first live stream, then continued those on a weekly basis, multiple of them. Once you had figured out the initial process, what other objectives or benefits did you see come out of this?
Once you realize that every person is unemployed that's a part of our industry, all negotiations, all traditional contracts, everything goes off the table. And then it just becomes a matter of, all right, you've helped me out for a long time. I'm gonna help you out for a long, and we're gonna all do this together, and we're all gonna volunteer our time. It's a genuine family atmosphere. So we worked with Miller Pro Audio, Eagle AVL, who does all of our concerts and tours and such that we work on. And all their top techs were unemployed. They have an entire warehouse with tens of millions of dollars worth of equipment just sitting there. And so we talked on a deal as far as, all right, if we can get together this amount of cash per week, what could we produce? And I was shocked at the amount of equipment and the level of talent on the engineer side that we were able to get our hands on. And so we teamed up and partnered together to produce these streams with, 6 cameras filmed in 4K. Just outstanding level of equipment, because just like what you said, you watch what these artists were doing from their homes. It works for them, and I understand why they do it, but it's not a great representation of what their brand is and what their names represent. So we wanted to give them a product that they would be proud of, and that would get them up off the couch and to take the chance to come stay 6 to 10 feet away from us and set their stuff up and leave, and we get it all dialed in and such. And that's ultimately how it started, very organically, with a tremendous amount of rules. We had agreements that they would have to sign with our safety policies. We were checking temperature. Anything that you could imagine as far as being very strict out of the gate, we did. And the only compensation that we promised the bands was that they would get this highlight reel, or actually their entire set, all filmed in 4K with great sound. And it would be streamed online. It was free marketing for them. And that footage that we shot, we knew would cost them $10,000 to $12,000 to get a promotional video done of the same quality. And they're getting it for free in exchange for their time to come out and play this gig for us. And once we saw, hey, that's a very appealing thing to a lot of local bands. Won't get you the national talent, but it'll get you the local bands. Then I had to find a way to pay for it. And so we developed. We leaned on our relationships, the people that were on our phone calls and such, to say, hey, if you give us a $10 gift card to use on our live streams to incentivize tipping, then, we're going to give you all this exposure. And we're going to, it's free marketing for you, basically, in exchange to push bodies to your establishment. So I was able to get 5 businesses signed up, plus use Lava Cantina. And so we developed a gift card package of $60. And so for anybody that used our online tip jar and tipped $20 or more, they got $60 in gift cards to use in the local community. And that's really how the tipping started. And we saw very quickly people were dialing into the broadcast just to leave the $20 tip so they could get the gift cards even. And then they would find that whenever they watched the band, they really enjoyed the band. So they ended up watching and sharing and doing watch parties. And it just turned kind of viral at that point. And then once I was able to gather enough impressions and say, hey, we're getting 1 million impressions or more a week, we took that data, that hard data, and developed just a marketing package and started approaching businesses to sponsor the broadcast. And then we ultimately found Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers signed up, and then 5 Star Ford in Dallas signed up. And then now we got a couple other smaller groups. And so we have a weekly sponsorship that all these groups pay. We run their commercials during the stream. We give them a lot of love on the air. They do giveaways. And it really makes for a very interactive stream. And we've been doing that ever since. And now we're up to 80 plus shows during this time period, and averaging, 3 million impressions a week or more on
Crazy.
what these broadcasts have brought in. And so they're fully paid for. We're now able to actually compensate artists due to the sponsorships, and not to the full amount that they were getting, but they are getting guarantees plus a percentage of their tips, and it's working out fine, for where we stand at this stage.
Oh, that's awesome. Probably tapped into your marketing background on that one. For those that don't know Lava Cantina, they have both an indoor restaurant and stage, outdoor stage that is a convertible GA or seated floor, as well as a balcony. Now, Ian, as you had this model and the occupancy restrictions in Texas began to loosen, allowing patrons outdoors and indoors in limited capacities, how did you take this streaming concept and turn it into a live music experience while staying within the new health and safety regulations that were imposed by the state of Texas?
A lot of the things that we ultimately engaged in would not be possible in a normal climate. And the reason why I say that is because gear costs a lot of money to rent, especially at the level of gear that we use currently. And so the very first thing we did when we knew regulations could be lifted and we could have people at the venue for the first time is that we have a very large parking lot, and we took out a big stage line, hung a giant LED wall on it, and decided to start streaming to that LED wall to increase the overall capacity that we could use. So every 3 parking spots became used for one family to where they could park. And then we rented the table and chairs that would be on to the side there. And the entire parking lot was sold for tickets for up to 6 people per bay, basically. And they were all roped in where they couldn't leave. The streams were only 100 minutes, so it worked out well for restrooms and such. And whatever band was playing on our stage inside the venue, we streamed to that giant screen. Once we were able to start having people come inside, we dropped the giant LED wall inside and on our rooftop as well. And those tables are all spaced 6 to 8 feet apart. And those were sold as streaming bays as well. In our backyard, where we can normally hold 1,800 people, we made corrals using bicycle racks, so big square areas that it's got a table in the middle of each one that's socially distanced from the next. And we sold those as live viewing seats. And we are still doing that. We're just able to have more tables today. But that was able to hold 150 people in the backyard out of the normal 1,800. But every seat out there is VIP. So they're all priced as VIP tables, and you can't buy individual tickets. You purchase the whole table. It comes with a beer from one of our beer sponsors of the event, like a bucket of them, and then an appetizer for the table. So we get you a little starter kit going for the price that you're paying for those tables to view it live, and then you have 3 other options to view the stream. In addition, to try to keep our people employed, a lot of people don't realize this, but Texas has never been a place that you can purchase liquor from a restaurant and bring it home or have it delivered. And a lot of states do allow that. Well, as a part of the COVID-19 changes, Governor Abbott changed that law, and hopefully it stays this way, but you can now do curbside delivery and curbside and delivery on alcohol. And what we developed was called the Booze Mobile. And so we did a online, like on Facebook, we just made a post and we said, hey, neighborhoods, vote for your neighborhood to have the Booze Mobile take a visit. And ultimately what it is we got the actual car from the Blues Brothers movie to lead the pack. We got a big van that we fill up with all kinds of orders and alcohol. And then we have Dallas Cowboys DJ SC on a trailer in tow. We make a parade through the neighborhood, throwing beads and such, but it's basically delivery in style. We're not a food truck. So we pick a neighborhood. We announce to them that we're coming on this date during this time, and people place all their orders in advance. And we load it up with 60 to 70 orders, and then we cruise through the neighborhood on a parade route and bring live entertainment, food, and booze to them. And it's just been a smashing success. So we've been able to get our food sales back up and provide some cool and innovative ways for our staff to have employment. So between the drive-in, between the streaming inside, between the streaming on the roof, the live, and the Boozmobile, this became our new model. And the only difference in what was happening a month ago and what's happening today is that we can do more people now. It's a matter of finding a way when your back's against the wall and you have no other choice. It's pretty great what your team can come up with, and I'm super proud of everybody that's been a part of this whole experience with us.
I know you speak highly of your team, and it's great that they can see it come to fruition at that level, and especially during a time like this. So I think overall, this is a great example of evolving a concept, into your areas of strength, or as you said, the areas of strength of your team. In following Lava over the past few weeks, it seems you have scaled this concept quite nicely from what we talked about. What are some of the other final highlights, or any big shows, or anything else new on the books? What else do you have to share about this?
I've been really proud of some of the people that's already stepped on our stage. We had Randy Rogers and Parker McCollum. For anybody that's a Red Dirt Texas country fan or just a country fan in general, that was a tremendous
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah. It's a song swap on stage. We have no business with 200 people in the backyard having a show of that caliber. So activating our sponsorship network and seeing how hungry and how thankful people are. I sit there every night, and a lot of people don't realize this, but I'm the one that answers all of our social media stuff. And we're getting literally 3,000 to 4,000 comments per stream. And I'm reading every single one of them and responding to anything that I possibly can. And you're going to get your people in there that are just idiots and they're being trolls, but they are such a small percentage of the total population of people that are just so thankful and have become super fans of our brand as a result. And out of anything else that's taken place, and I love our staff more than anything. I love our team and the innovation and all the hard work everybody has put in and stuff has really been gratifying personally. But sitting there and seeing the stuff that people are saying without realizing who's reading it and who's watching or anything along those lines, it makes me extremely proud of what we've accomplished and what we've done. And it's inspired me to not forget about these times, because it's really changed us as a business, and it's really evolved us into something that I believe is ultimately going to make us so much better for the future, because we are one with our community now. In times of crisis and stuff, I feel like our team stepped up to the plate, and people not only used it, but recognized the sacrifices and stuff that the team was making in order to do this. And even in our initial openings now, people are walking in and taking pictures all over the venue like they've never done before. Like, this place got me through the lockdowns, this place. And you keep hearing this over and over and over again. And we're seeing a rebound of our business like I would have never really expected. And in comparison, I'm talking to a lot of other business owners that sat on their hands and did nothing and are just starting to reopen, and they're not seeing the same sort of turnouts as what we're doing, where all the shows are selling out and everything like that. So I do think we have created a new monster of a business that we have to pay respect to. We had never streamed one show ever. And then now it's part of our new business model. It's what we are going to do from here on out. And, and getting a sales team to keep sponsors and to continue to find ways and to work on licensing agreements with these artists and make sure we have the correct permissions and all that stuff. It's stuff that we never expected to have to work on, but now it's just the way that we do business.
How you see these things evolve and change your business, as you said, bring on a new sales team and open up new avenues that you didn't have before, is really the interesting and the positives that we're going to see come out of this, not only for you, but for other venues that have started to make those changes, that are starting to reopen, and how they get back to their new normal. So out of all those things you've seen and done, do you think this impacts the way you ticket events or build a fan experience or book artists or all the above?
Absolutely. We have so many changes. Even the way we do our pay structures and such with the bands right now, if they're willing to stream, we do additional incentives. If they're not willing to stream, it limits our ability and what we can pay them. And so, and be able to offer multiple packages and options for the bands definitely helps. If they're, are they pro sponsorship or against sponsorship? Well, as of right now, everybody's pro sponsorship. Before, it was very difficult to get a logo tagged onto a lot of these shows. And so as we work on these strategies with these bands, and it's very easy for us to remind, and not in an arrogant way, it's like, who paid you during the COVID times? Who kept you employed? Who did, we stepped up to the plate and we found ways to keep you working. And what we need back from you now is we're in need to keep content, and we've got to continue to move forward, and let's work together in order to continuously build upon this model, and they all become partners as a part of the full initiative with us. To the point now where we're working on a new initiative that's beginning to roll out, where these bands, all their private parties for the year have been canceled. So I've armed them with data to say, go back to these corporate events that have canceled and tell them, let's do it virtually. And here's the price that we can do it for. And we can hold up to 400 people here that are local, and they can stream everything out to the rest of the country and the world, of the people that can't fly in or they don't feel comfortable. And we are starting now to get private parties rebooked as a part of virtual corporate events and virtual birthday parties. And we did 2 virtual graduations in the past couple of weeks. So it is a hard pivot, and it is continuously finding a way, and what's the next step and what's the next phase going to be. And all we're trying to do is sit back and make sure we don't miss a great opportunity to actively utilize all the stuff, the tools and resources and equipment and people that we have accessible to us right now, because things aren't going to change dramatically for the music industry anytime in the near future as far as getting back to full touring and full capacities and such. It's going to eventually get there from the context of, let's stay employed today, let's keep working today for a new business tomorrow. Everybody seems to be on board with that, and we're just seeing a tremendous positive movement in that direction. And it's really sky's the limit as far as what you're willing to do given the circumstances that have been put in front of you.
That's great. For a lot of venue owners, this is a great case study for how venues can adapt and change to market conditions. From you, as we had said, starting with that initial concept and then rolling it out into new business avenues. And now you're creating a whole new business model that probably wasn't there a year ago. So I know you and I have discussed this before, but consumers will have a ton of options for shows in 2021. It's really going to be a saturated market where fans are going to have a lot of options. As we move into this new live landscape, is there any advice you would give to other indies, independent promoters, or venues?
The main thing is be proactive in addressing the problems and the situations that your guests and consumers face. And maybe because we struggled so much out of the gate, because we bit off more than what we could chew when we first opened our business 3 or 4 years ago. And we've always had to find a way, and there's always something that you can do. I look at it right now, and the amount of debt we've been able to pay off during this time, the amount of people we've been able to employ, and the number of lives we've been able to touch, we're stronger than what we ever have been, because that's what teams do. Teams are families, and they pull together in times of crisis. And whenever they succeed, they have a bond that can never be broken by anything else. And I'm extremely proud to see how the response has been on all accounts. And so that would be the main point I would just say to any business owner of any industry is, in those times of crisis, you've got to sit down and you've got to listen to your team. You got to listen to what your guests are saying. You got to listen to what your vendors are saying, and you've got to find a way that satisfies to a certain degree of what everybody needs in order to support one another, and some real magic can come out of it.
I know you've worked very hard to break into this business and also to get where you are today as a partner, but also a friend. And through all this, it's great to hear some positives and results for you and your team's hard work. So tell me about some of the artists you're managing and plans over the next year with them.
Yeah, what's funny about the COVID times is we've been able to watch so many bands that we've never had an opportunity to book because we needed content and space filled. And I've been blown away by a number of artists. And then there was an artist that we were already managing, Harper Grace, that we picked up last year with her and her relationship. And when she was one of the very first ones that did the stream with us, and her first show wasn't great. And it was awesome for us to be able to watch it because I know what level of talent she is. I know she's a future star. And so whenever she comes on that stage and she did her show and she walked off, and you could tell she wasn't happy and her band wasn't happy, and it was just one of those nights they were off. But the stream gave her an opportunity to go back and watch it and critique herself over and over and over again. And she got a second shot, 3 weeks later, and absolutely blew the doors off. And it was everything I believed in with her, and she just, her star shined bright that night. And then they have another group that comes in that's been asking for a gig forever since we've been open, and we've never booked them. But they came on the stage, and I didn't know what to expect and didn't know a lot of the backstory as far as how hard they tried to get in there. And they absolutely floored me and everybody else online. And we were just absolutely blown away. Come to find out, they were not signed with anybody, and they're called Vaudeville, and they're just an absolutely tremendous band. And now we're happy to be working with them. And there's other numerous artists that we are working with as an active management company. However, the main thing is in the upcoming months, we have major tours that we're going to be producing and promoting that were supposed to take place in October, November, that will reach 50 to 60 cities with some major artists. We're only going to end up doing 10 to 15 of those dates this year, and the rest of them are going to push to March or April next year for obvious reasons. And the exposure that we're getting and the highlight reels that we've been able to get with our artists coming and doing these streams and having great HD quality video to make these highlight reels is increasing our opportunities for exposure of the artists that we're managing today. So I am fully confident that you'll be seeing many of these names on upcoming tours of whatever their select genres are. So when I look at the 12 months ahead, again, we've tried to utilize this downtime effectively to get each one of these bands their marketing packages put together, their promo reels put together, using their stems to go back and remix and have a great live performance that we can get out there on all the streaming services for music, and on and on and on, all the way down to signing new talent. So I'm hoping that things do return to normal, and that competitive landscape is very difficult. And because I feel as at this point in time, we're ready to be on the forefront on not only at Lava Cantina, but impacting the rest of the industry as well with some great talent.
Ian, once again, thanks for taking the time today. It's always good to hear what's going on in your world, and I hope to connect again soon.
Yes, sir. I appreciate all the time, and thanks for doing these podcasts. I think the education for everybody, get a great resources and learning experiences that we can all share amongst our industry. It's a great thing.
Appreciate it.
This podcast has now concluded. Full recordings of all podcasts are now live on prolific1.com. If you would like to participate in future podcasts, please email info@prolific1.com or contact our business development team. Thank you for listening.